So I know a lot of different reaction channels, often known as hater channels, making commentary and reactions around the YouTube personality Sarasota Tim had a good surprise the other day because a much larger channel actually decided to cover one of Sarasota Tim's videos along with other videos from other reaction channels such as Darling and Atomic Sage, who many in our community here who watch a lot of content around Sarasota Tim, and those of us who've made commentary around Sarasota Tim have, are very familiar with these particular channels. So it seems that Zachary Michael and another YouTube creator by the name of Colin Mockery, it seems that I think potentially Colin had said, take a look at Sarasota Tim, or Sarasota Tim had somehow ended up in Zach Michael's in their YouTube algorithm. And that kind of, I think also a conversation potentially had ensued with Colin Mockery, maybe, something of that combination that this gentleman seems to have a lot of older YouTube commentators, older as in age, making kind of commentary. And as Zachary kept trying to say that everybody really seems to hate him. Now, hate is a very strong word. And for myself, I don't necessarily hate on a personal level Sarasota Tim, though I have to say there are many things about who he is that I really find to be not with a lot of integrity as far as how he is on YouTube. And I think that's really where my problem lies for me. And so I kind of thought of 10 different things, and I'll try to make this quick. But I did have to say, I did fangirl a little bit before I get into my 10 things as to why I feel that Tim is a little bit problematic in response to, Zachary, and helping them understand why Tim is not somebody that is, that should be people should be warned about maybe some of his actual objectives when he's creating content. Now, he has a right to make money, and Sarasota Tim has a right to put out 10 videos a day, and he has to understand that only 3 of those will be pushed out to his subscribers. We don't know how he classifies his content. I have a suspicion. I know there's a way for me to actually go into and find out exactly how he tags his content. For example, I'll be putting this under people in vlogs, and Sarasota Tim could be potentially saying that his advice is financial, and therefore he would get more AdSense money. And he puts out a lot of videos, he gets a lot of views by the end of the day, and he's making very good money. And so I think that, and nobody is stopping him from doing that. But how he obtains some of his material possessions, I think, is where we have problems. So let's get to number 1. And that's Sarasota Tim's lack of integrity. Oh, I was going to say, I had fangirl about Zach Michael, actually calling out my channel, Life and Vibe. They also mentioned Miss Vicky and their channel. And but they did not say anything derogatory, but they did read a comment about how I did leave a comment on the Sarasota Tim video that Zachary Michael made a reaction video to, and they said that I'm a nurse and I shouldn't be a bully, and I do not bully Sarasota Tim. Okay, I just want to make sure that's clear. So this is my response to Zachary Michael. All right. So the first reason why I have a problem with Sarasota Tim is, one, his lack of integrity. It's really because he has been known to have acquired a couple of years ago, and we'll get into, into this, into I think point number it's going to come up in one of the points, is that he did acquire these PPP and EIDL loans, of which that video has now been deleted off of YouTube. So that's a whole nother issue. And so he lacks integrity, because when he comes out now, his new narrative is, I prepared, I saved, I worked really hard my whole life, and now I have the fruits of my labors here in my mid-60s, and now I have a YouTube channel, and I'm going to tell you how to achieve this lifestyle. And in reality, Tim's lifestyle was very different from that throughout his time. So his narrative is false, and I think that's where he's very dishonest. He seemed to have gained a lot of his wealth, if you may, throughout the time when we were having a crisis globally, and he took advantage of a lot of loans up towards, I believe, over 21,000 on PPP allegedly, and it's definitely documented I have the SB loan numbers, if you want to take a look, over 58,000 in EIDL, which, fair, but he never kept a business open. And the thing that he did was sell oil change coupon books to door to door. And when he had saturated the market, he moved on. He tries to say he was a marketing entrepreneur and so forth, and that is not the case. He says he worked 2 to 3 hours a day, 2 to 3 days a week. He did as little work as possible. So I think there's a lack of integrity, because now he's trying to say he prepared and saved. His Social Security money is, we understand, based on a previous spouse and not anything to do with his own contributions. So him trying to say he worked hard and did all these things, it's not true. And so that's a lack of integrity. If he wants to be in an RV, so forth, that's fine, but he needs to be honest with that money that really helped him acquire was, one, probably the money that he earned from the one very big YouTube video, which would be great if we actually knew how much he made from that, since he's supposedly a financial channel, but we'll never hear that information. And secondly, from loans, these 21 plus over 58, so it's getting up in the $80-some thousand range of loans that Tim took, and potentially with falsified paperwork, which could allegedly, in my opinion, be for wire fraud. And yes, he has been reported. Number 2 is Tim's religious manipulation. So Tim has a habit of having these videos called Crushing It for Christ. He also wants to talk about blessings all the time, but blessings are basically financial contributions that Tim's subscribers make to Tim, which is there's nothing wrong with that. But the difference is that Tim hasn't opened up channel memberships. He does not do like chats or thanks or any of those types of things with YouTube. He does affiliate links, and he does buy me a coffee, and he has PO boxes, which we don't know for this Christmas. He did last year, where he has his subscribers send him gift certificates and so forth. Now, I have received Buy Me a Coffee too, and it's almost a parody to Tim, and obviously I appreciate it. I am in graduate school studying to be a psychiatric mental health nurse practitioner, so I am coming from this angle of somebody who is studying psychiatric mental health, and so I do have concerns about the manipulative tactics that Tim uses, one with religion, to say that he's paying it forward, and so he gets people to donate money to him, and in reality that money does not go to people. A little bit, but it's only in the line of a McDonald's, and he gets upset if they don't recognize that he bought them a cup of coffee. They need to toot their horns and say thank you. But he also has a price limit, so he'll ask ahead of time, how much is it? And if he feels it's too much, which is about $12, then he will not pay it forward. But he gets a lot of financial donations from his subscribers, which he takes away off the YouTube platform, and that's where he gets into that sort of messy relationship about the friends that you couldn't quite understand. So there's a lot of, and Tim is not somebody who has lived a particular, unless he uses the fact that he found Jesus and stuff, but a lot in Tim's life says that that's not the case. He does not follow a lot of Christian doctrines unless it suits him. Very much the prosperity gospel and planting seeds and so forth. So that's where Tim is problematic, in my opinion. Number 3, Tim has a lack of integrity. Or did I say lack of integrity already? Well, it should have been lack of honesty. Both the same. Lack of honesty. He says he's no longer drinking, but we have things of him coming out. He stopped talking about that ever since he got caught leaving a Key West bar recently with Miss Tammy. Oh, and there's a whole deep thing about the fact that Tim had a relationship with somebody who was married, and we don't know everybody's business, but we also know that the spouse of the lady that he had a relationship died in very dramatic and traumatic circumstances at the start of this year. Was run over by his own truck while he was working on it. And then Tim shortly afterwards left the state. So we're just going to leave it there because that's a whole conspiracy theory. But so that's kind of the drama that goes around Tim. So there's a lot of stuff. He was, for his first marriage was when he was 16 years old. I understand because allegedly he had a relationship with somebody who was a teacher in his school, of which she became pregnant, and they had to marry. And so we don't know if Tim continued with high school at that point and got his high school or did a GED or what happened. So it's hard to know. But, and he's had a few wives, and there's nothing to say that you can't have a number of marriages. But, in the hindsight, when you're somebody who's studying psychiatry and you're kind of looking at patterns of behaviors into somebody's life, and you're seeing these types of actions from somebody very young, that calls into, a lot of, and it wasn't because that was acceptable at the time. I can promise you that would have not been that would have been anything but acceptable, along with the habit of number 4. Now, you were confused, Zach, as to why Tim has friends and the friends are not people that seem to be friends that he's known throughout his life or people that he knows offline, IRL. These friends are people that Tim has met as subscribers through his channel. And it's not to say that YouTube content creators can't meet up with subscribers IRL. But the difficulty here is that he actually stays in their houses. He films their houses, their vehicles. He meets up with them on holiday, but not like a cruise organized by anything. I mean, just goes to, there's definitely a questionable line between Tim and his relationship with his subscribers and kind of the cult-like adoration they have for him, in my opinion, and how most content creators would manage their relationships with their community. And so I think that, to me, is something that I feel is very manipulative, and it can be seen as something that is serving for Tim, because if Tim isn't receiving anything from these people, then he kind of moves on, which he did. He moved on very quickly from his visit in Laughlin, where he was not receiving anywhere near the free hotel stays, the meals, the golf games, the shirts, the gifts that he had received. But he received a lot of money for the hurricane in Florida, so don't get me wrong, folks. And I think the reason why he probably was so quick to return back towards Florida was in order to be able to stay at JJ's house in the Villages, in my opinion. We also have questions as to whether or not he's set up a PO box. So just take a look at his description box, guys. Or maybe he's emailed it to people secretly, so we don't know about it. And that comes to number 5, and a term that obviously comes from Judge Joe Mathis is Tim's dry begging. And it's not that we don't all have super chats or super thanks or go live and get pays and super thanks that way, or gifts or any of these things, because that's obviously how content creation survives. But there is a question: is Tim actually giving worthwhile, good content to his subscribers. He just, pretty much films, uploads, spits it out. There's very little thought behind anything that Tim does. So that's kind of part of where it becomes questionable. But there is a lot of times where he has mentioned the price of items, and then his supporters of his channel will send him that amount of money to his Buy Me a Coffee. And there is some suspicion that potentially he buys that object to make his subscribers happy. He then potentially returns those objects to get the cash, but then also and pockets that, but then also is able to use those invoices as part of he believes everything that he does on YouTube is part of a write-off. And so he is always talking about the cost of gas. He actually just bought a truck that cost over $60,000, but he wanted his subscribers to make a donation for the cost of the gas in order to bring them the high quality content in order for him to be able to get his self to Nevada from Florida. So that's the kind of thing that Tim tends to do. And his audience are people who may be older, who might be living on Social Security, might have limited finances, and not understanding, as you were trying to say, how much money Tim makes on YouTube. So he doesn't really, need that from his subscribers, but he is very happy to take it. And he really doesn't. But for a few McDonald's coffee donations, there really is very little that Tim pays forward. And he's very bossy. We'll get into that in a minute. Number 6, and everybody knows this, Tim lacks expertise, but acts as if he is an expert. So his biggest video that blew up was him talking about Social Security. And that particular video garnered over 2 million views, but his mathematics were completely wrong. And I believe it was Miss Tammy who had to correct him, and he had to come back out. And a lot of people then started to make comments like, hey, this isn't right, you're not correct with these numbers, you shouldn't be letting people know this. And what Tim tends to do then is he actually deletes a lot of his comments. So you'll go to one of his videos and you might only find 30 comments, which is odd for a channel that has over 60 some thousand subscribers. Go to my comment section. I have hundreds of comments, and I have them from both his followers who love to leave, comments, and also love to bombard my email and do things in order to intimidate me off of YouTube, and it doesn't work. And he tries to have control. So he does a lot of the things that you have mentioned about people like Amberlynn Reed and the way that they try to manipulate their comment sections and how they dirty delete videos off of YouTube. And so those are things that he does. And he has a lack of expertise. He tries to tell everybody they're going to be dead by 73. He tries to tell them that doctors are killing people. The third leading cause of death in America are physicians, and this, that, and the other. He tells people not to go see their doctors. He tries to act like he's an expert on Medicare Advantage plans, and he lives in a completely different state. He really tries to give, because he can use this as taglines, and then he can say this is financial advice, and then he gets the AdSense that goes along with it. He also is probably hoping he's going to hit another one of those algorithm jackpots like he had in the past. And that's one of the reasons how a lot of people who are older people found Tim on YouTube. And then it became, and it's not just sort of using a patriarchy. I'm somebody who's very much not in the patriarchy, and I'm somebody who finds the advice that he is giving people to be problematic, because he didn't save and prepare. Now, if people did prepare and save, I had family of mine who RV'd, and I think I would encourage that. And we have other channels such as Sharing the Journey that share their RV life, and I don't think anybody sees that they're problematic. But Tim doesn't know anything about being in an RV. He dumps dirty black water around. He is on BLM land, and he is firing off things with bullets left, right, and center. There's a lot of things that Tim does that are problematic. Okay, number 7, he dirty deletes. And the first one, and if you when he was talking about, his haters being AIs and bots, which obviously I am not. I am a professional. I am in school, like I said. And so I look at people like Tim, and a lot of my classmates have agreed with this, that, it's very important for us studying psychiatry to kind of look at social media, not only how it can influence people in the respect that it can cause issues around, with youth and, potentially issues around depression, which is my next topic in my class, but it also can be about how people who can be very manipulative can use it to their advantages. And we see this all the time when it comes to financial bros and people who are selling products and even makeup gurus. Just there's so many different ways that we're starting to see how this ability of this mass communication very much, from what seems like, somebody who's just a regular normal person and the consumer of the content, it doesn't mean that you're purchasing, but you are consuming the content, how that affects people. And so I have a particular interest in how people who potentially are in the dark triad, as it's known, people with Machiavellian personalities, people with subclinical narcissism, people with subclinical psychopathy, how they can potentially use the internet to influence people and use it to their advantages. And so I'm always very clear about this. I do not treat or diagnose, but I do have an interest, which is why I have covered a number of different creators in the past. Now, Tim Dirty deleted, obviously, a video that I did a reaction on where he talks about his PPP, EIDL loans, his unemployment, and talked much more honestly about how he used those monies to pay off debts. And he had no business that continued after that, and he seemed to have never had any employees. So that makes it questionable as to why you've had over $80,000 of EIDL with a business that seemed to shut down while he was receiving unemployment, never started back up again, relied only on him going door to door and knocking on people's doors, but yet needed somehow $80,000 to keep its doors open, of which its doors never seemingly, in my opinion, remained open. And that's what we find questionable. He also flashed his entire audience completely naked in a refrigerator. So he was filming a video. He was naked while filming it. So he obviously understood he was naked. He was opening up his blinds in a parking lot. So he was filming his neighbor's RVs while naked. So had one of his neighbors looked out the window, they would have seen naked Tim. So for all of those with the, hear me out on the cake, take a look at some of our videos. You could go see Tim, filming in the camera where he swoops past his refrigerator with the shining surface that gave you it was a full look of Tim. Okay, so you could hear that one out on the cake. But yeah, he deleted that one, obviously. But people had to ask him to delete it. So he did not understand why it was wrong for him to have a video of him just showing off his naked body right there on YouTube. Yeah, Tim Dirty deletes a lot. That's a problem. And number 8, Tim is a channel striker and asks his subs to do the same. So he has not only asked, he's asked openly on his channel for his subscribers to mass report channels like mine who make reactions around his, and he's actually had channels removed. And he's also flagged channels for inappropriate content when there was none there, and they've had to fight and claw their channels back. Ask Darling about that one. So Tim does a lot of things that are very low-cal. Let's just put it that way. Number 9. I put this one in here, and you should understand this. He just plain out hates dogs. He doesn't think they should be in hotels. He doesn't understand why people have dogs in beds. He hates dogs. And somebody who has a lack of compassion for animals, to me, that's always something I find interesting. Yeah. He can't take care of anything. He's too selfish. And that leads me to point number 10. He seems to have a lack of empathy for others. And I think that's problematic as well. This has been highlighted with the infamous, what's known as Miss Tammy's Shingate, where he watched supposedly his girlfriend or his collaborator hit a metal staircase going up into an RV, and he just continued filming it and seemed to actually laugh and find enjoyment in the activity and offered her no help or support. He didn't seem to think it was a moment to even put the camera down. He's bossy. He will be seen on the golf course just telling his friends, his randos, what to do, and just continue to tell people what to do. Very self-centered. It's really about Tim. Last time he was his friends, he was eating alone in a Mexican restaurant. They probably realized if they went out to eat with Tim, they would be comping the meal, because that's kind of what he anticipates. I mean, he was given thousands of dollars of golf clubs by these people. We're not talking about a golfing company sending him a product to highlight on their channel, share an affiliate link. I mean, he has those too, but he used to actually have products, but I think he would do the commercial and then he would actually sell the product. He wouldn't keep a use. Like this one, I got my tennis bracelet on and I love this thing, guys. Okay, well, that's 10. I'm sure you guys have other reasons. These kind of covered the personality areas, I guess, and it kind of covers there for his actions rather than just the bigger picture of just some older guy, I should say, because he's only a few years older than I am, 10 years older, living in an RV and making the best of life and crushing it. He's somebody who potentially has manipulated the taxpayers' funds to get this kind of start on his channel. And like I said, his advice has been really bad for people. It's been almost to the point where Dr. Ed Weir had to pull himself out of retirement in order to combat a lot of the misinformation that is being given by these types of folks like Sarasota Tim. He has actually had some cases, I understood, of harm done to individuals who followed his advice. I had somebody who left comments letting me know that they had followed his advice and it had not worked out very well for them. And so I think he's not highlighting, they're not bringing in all this money from a YouTube channel or getting, a lot of money. If you ever check out his Buy Me a Coffee, he does not show the names now, but he gets a lot. Some of them are just hate donations. It's wild. Anyway, those are my 10 reasons why people find Sarasota Tim's content to be problematic on YouTube. I hope you all enjoyed that, and we'll catch you on the next one. Bye.